Then President-elect Donald Trump meets with former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani at Trump National Golf Club on November 20, 2016, in Bedminster, NJ. Emmert, AFP, Getty Images. A common reaction to Donald Trump's presidency has been a sense that reality has outstripped even the most feverish fiction. The only thing to do when the world has come to feel like the implausible output of a genre-hopping television show is to cover it that way. Welcome to our recaps of The Trump Show. Some episodes of The Trump Show whip by at speeds that range from jaunty to hurricane, propelled by torrents of events. And some seemed to pack years into a single hour, less because an enormous number of things are happening than because the episodes make us feel like we're trapped in an existential torture chamber without the possibility of release. Such was this week's episode of The Trump Show, which began with the spectacle of Washington contorting itself over the White House Correspondents' Association dinner, and ended with a bizarre performance by the Rudy Giuliani character, who has been lurking in the background for much of the show's run, and finally elbowed himself to the forefront. But let's start at the very beginning. The Trump Show has an overall aura of black humor, and the main character often seems to borrow his mannerisms from insult comedy, but the series has not done very much with actual comedians. So it was interesting to see what it decided to do with the Michelle Wolf character, who was brought in as the entertainment at the White House dinner. The Correspondents' Association dinner already plays a fraught role in The Trump Show, as we've seen in flashbacks. The roasting of the Donald Trump character at a previous event served to heighten the animosity between him and his predecessor and to provide one of his motivations to seek the presidency for real. By this point in the series' run, though, it serves as a kind of withered fig leaf on the relationship between the Trump administration and the media. It's an evening when everyone gets up and pretends that there's a normal give and take at work, when in fact the dynamic has become deeply toxic. The boldest thing that The Trump Show did in its depiction of the dinner was to blow up that pretense. Wolf roasted White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders to fork tenderness. She was brutal to the assembled journalists, and the latter immediately went out and proved Wolf's criticisms accurate by ginning up a fake controversy on behalf of the former, accusing Wolf of having insulted Sanders' looks. The writing on The Trump Show can be a little loose, but in this case, at least, the writers meticulously constructed a scenario in which the show's chorus of journalists could make fools of themselves. It's a devastating bit of scenario planning, even if the series doesn't really follow up on the consequences, as is so often the case. The latter half of the episode was more tightly connected to the show's longest-running plot arc, the investigations into Trump and his cronies. Some of the developments advanced existing storylines. We learned, for example, that Trump attorney Michael Cohen's phone had been wiretapped, a revelation that promises to set up plenty of drama for the episodes to come. Others tossed not mere wrenches but entire toolboxes into existing plots. The most notable example of this was the wild interview that former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani gave to Fox News host Sean Hannity, in which he contradicted the previous narrative on the subject and said that Trump had reimbursed Cohen $130,000 for a pre-election payoff to Stephanie Clifford, the adult film star known as Stormy Daniels. That revelation, which contradicted much of what Trump, Sanders and other people in his orbit had said previously, wasn't merely a surprise to those of us watching at home, it appears to have come as a shock to the characters on the show. It also potentially implicates the president himself in a campaign finance violation, and given the overheated nature of The Trump Show, it would be highly amusing if something that wonky turned out to play a critical role in the series' endgame. Beyond the specific implications of Giuliani's interview, there's something revealing about the new prominence of his character on The Trump Show. Giuliani is, like Trump and like Cohen, very much a creature of New York. He is, after all, the former mayor of the city. Trump represents the metropolis's vulgar wealth, Cohen, its less respectable hustle. The Trump Show is ostensibly a national story, in that it's about a presidential election and the presidency that came after it. But the rise of Giuliani and Cohen as major characters in the series is pulling it back to its roots. The Trump Show is fundamentally a New York show, with all of the glitz and sordidness that implies. But we know there are 8 million stories in the naked city, even if some have been temporarily transported to Washington. There are still plenty of ways this one can end.